Good morning, everybody. Yesterday, I did a story about parents and grandparents and how expensive they are to bring into Canada. And I thought it was a pretty good video. If you haven't checked it out because it informs some of what I'm talking about today. So Maxime Bernier is tweeting about the same thing. He says, quote, "Where we learn that Michelle Rempel wants to increase the number of foreign seniors coming to Canada and taking advantage of our overloaded healthcare system, even though they've never paid any taxes here. Which wing of the LibCom party will be the most generous with our money?" And I wanted to show you, Michelle is, or I am blocked from seeing Michelle's tweets, but I can see her tweets anyway. So this is the tweet he's referring to. It's Michelle Rempel, and she says, quote, "I've received dozens of emails and calls from people furious that Trudeau slammed the door shut in the faces of grandparents and parents trying to legally enter the country in 7 minutes yesterday, while at the same time spending another $114 million on illegal border crossers. I'm glad she's calling them illegal border crossers, but does this mean that the Conservative Party is intending on increasing numbers, or what? Or are you just pandering, Michelle? Because this seems like not a very strong position on segment of the population that the former Conservative Party under Stephen Harper rolled down or rolled back the numbers and I believe completely stopped the program. And you tweeting this as the shadow immigration minister signals that you will at least keep up the Liberal numbers. So are you intending for 20,000 people to come in, parents and grandparents, under a Conservative majority, if you get that? That's a cogent question. I'd love an answer. And I think so would Maxime Bernier. Here's another Maxime Bernier thread, and he's again talking about parents and grandparents. And I encourage you to go watch yesterday's video, not because, well, because if I rehash it all, it's going to be, today's video is going to be really long. So there's a whole lot wrong with bringing in this many parents and grandparents. Not that I don't want parents and grandparents to be unified with their kids, but maybe in your home country. Hey, right? Sorry. Maxime Bernier saying, quote, "This is just another vote-buying scheme for the Liberals, with no economic benefit for Canada. I understand the wish of immigrants to reunite with older family members, but the first objective of our immigration policy should be to fulfill the economic needs of our country." And he's quoting Ahmed Hussen's thread that I went through yesterday and I won't look at again today. Number 2, in particular, our immigration policy should answer the needs of sectors where there is a scarcity of manpower with specialized skills, and in more general terms, contribute to increasing the number of young workers in a society that is fast aging. 3, a People's Party government will lower immigration levels, but also put more emphasis on economic immigration, skilled workers fulfilling our manpower needs, and reduce the categories of family reunification and refugees. So that's and a link to the People's Party policy. So that's a stark contrast between what's happening now. So Ahmed Hussen is even introducing further expansion of having economic migrants put into small communities, and he's using truckers as his proof that this is a needed, necessary program. And so we'll have a look at his tweet here. Here it is. Mr. Hussen saying, "Trucking Alliance welcomes rural northern immigration pilot." And there's a article here. It says, "The Canadian Truckers Alliance is applauding plans for a 5-year federal immigration project meant to help newcomers, including truck drivers, settle in local communities. Immigrants will be selected for the pilot program based on occupational skills and local needs, including roles from truck drivers to teachers. About 3,000 participants are expected overall. This program is not a temporary foreign workers program. It's a permanent program to give permanent residencies to skilled immigrants and their families, immigration, refugees, and citizens." Canada Minister Ahmed Hussen said during a related press scrum. So, yeah, they're going to use any excuse to move as many people as possible into as many communities as possible. You thought Toronto was diverse? You ain't seen nothing yet. So that's disturbing, and Maxime Bernier is the only one standing against it at this point in time. However, yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of work to do on this file. This is an unmitigated disaster happening in Canada in real time, and the Liberals are continuing it. The Conservatives are signaling that they're at least interested in continuing. Oh, right, Michelle's tweet is hidden. So the LibCon Conservatives are signaling that they will entertain keeping the numbers at 20,000 instead of 5,000 or less. So that's interesting. And Maxime Bernier is saying more economic migrants, people who are skilled, and less refugees, and family reunification. And yes, Mr. Hussen is saying that we're going to connect skills with needs in northern communities, but from what I've heard, the needs in northern communities are jobs, not skilled laborers. So that's an interesting difference that I'm hearing on Twitter and in comments, etc. The FBI has laid charges, and this is FBI.gov. Link is in the description. You can read it for yourself. But Christopher Wray has laid a bunch of charges, and we're going to hear, this is reported yesterday. It says Chinese telecom conglomerate charged with multiple crimes, conspiracy to defraud the United States, bank fraud, and theft of trade secrets, among nearly 24 charges announced against Huawei. Chinese telecommunications equipment manufacturing giant Huawei Technologies company has been charged with bank fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and theft of trade secrets, among other crimes. In indictments unsealed today by the United States Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York and the Western District of Washington. The charges unsealed today are the result of years of investigative work conducted by FBI and our law enforcement partners. FBI Director Christopher Wray said today at the Department of Justice press conference announcing the indictments. Both sets of charges expose Huawei's brazen and persistent actions to exploit American companies and financial institutions and to threaten the free and fair global marketplace. The Eastern District of New York charged Huawei, 2 of its affiliates, and Chief Financial Officer Meng Wanzhou with 13 counts of surrounding the company's misrepresentation to the U.S. government and 4 financial institutions regarding its business in Iran. The indictment charges that the company used financial institutions operating in the United States to process transactions involving millions of dollars and furtherance of Huawei's Iran-based businesses. These transactions and the company's false statements about them violated U.S. law, including the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The additional 10 charges out of Washington State allege that employees at Huawei Device Co. and Huawei Devices USA, Incorporated, worked to steal the details of an innovative and proprietary tool built by T-Mobile to test the performance of new mobile phones prior to launch. According to the indictment, Huawei employees who were granted limited access to T-Mobile's Tappy robot system stole information about the technology in violation of non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements and then sought to cover up their actions. And I scroll down just a bit. Quote, "These cases make clear," Ray stressed, "that as a country, we must consider carefully the risk that companies like Huawei pose if we allow them into our telecommunications infrastructure. The FBI does not and will not tolerate business that violates our laws, obstruct our justice, and jeopardize our national security." I was looking on Google this morning for Huawei 5G, and because clearly Christopher Wray would not want Huawei building their 5G network. And because of the statement he said, these cases make clear that as a country we must consider carefully the risks companies like Huawei pose. So, and the reason is they're stealing trade secrets and they're sending it back to China. That is proven. And regardless of the fact that this is a US-based company, this is Huawei USA, it doesn't matter, right? The allegiance to some of these employees felt to Huawei Main, the main branch, the flagship branch in Beijing, had them sending Tappy robot secrets back to Beijing. So that's a problem. But when I was searching for Huawei this morning, National Post printed this 2 hours ago. Well, 8:26, yeah. This morning by Eric Lee. And it tells you right at the bottom of the article, Eric Lee is the president of Huawei Technologies Canada. Okay, so he is printing this in the Globe and Mail, and it was the top of the Google search that I did this morning looking for information about this. So it says, the title of this is, "Let's be clear, Huawei is no threat to Canada or Canadians. Huawei Canada operates in Canada, and we adhere to Canadian law. We have no access to personal consumer data, and our network security is developed in tandem with these partners." A steady stream of news concerning Canada and China has dominated recent headlines, from trade relations to cybersecurity to arrests and extraditions. The reports have been unrelenting and invoked issues of far-reaching consequences. Huawei Canada has found itself at the very center of all this with, in particular, critical questions about our ongoing participation in the rollout of Canada's 5G wireless networks. The issue is of enormous importance to not just our company, but to millions of Canadians who rely upon staying connected to high-speed internet for business and entertainment, whether at home, at work, or on the move. Indeed, it is no exaggeration to say that 5G will be the building block of future economic growth and innovation for Canada. The rollout of this new technology is that important. It's that fundamental. So you like some scare porn with your morning paper? And they don't mention that this guy is the president of Huawei Canada until the very end. So at this point, it looks like National Post reporter with the byline Eric Lee is telling us that the rollout of 5G by Huawei is so important that not doing it could be economic ruin. Like this is economic growth and innovation for Canada, right? But it's the president of Huawei writing this. So you need to take that with a grain of salt, or like all of the salt, right? So back to the article. In this context, a host of questions have been raised about Huawei, most of them by retired security officials who have made forceful and repeated charges against our company, our intentions, our integrity, and our reliability. Are they talking about Tom Quiggin here? And I really don't know if Tom Quiggin has been on Huawei's back. I know he's been on Mr. Trudeau's back about his funding of Islamic terrorism, but I hadn't heard anything about that. So they're calling somebody out specifically here, but I don't know who. So that's interesting that the president of Huawei takes time in his op-ed here trying to sanitize Huawei Canada to call out a security official. Not by name, but I mean, if somebody's calling them out repeatedly and forcefully, it's not going to be hard to find out who it is. I just haven't yet. Okay, back to the article. Many of these individuals were the same officials who argued unsuccessfully a decade ago to bar Huawei technologies in the rollout of 4G, raising similar concerns that, in the last 10 years, have proven to be unfounded. Oh, really? Here is a report from 1997. It's called Sidewinder, and if you haven't heard of it before, I've reported about it before. I'm just going to go over the important parts here. Okay, so you saw that this was Operation Sidewinder, and this is the overview. Link is in the description. Feel free to check it out for yourself. Please do. Hand in hand with this situation, the Chinese intelligence services make very active use of their access to Canadian industries through exchanges of specialists and students, and also set up shell companies to pursue their acquisition of economic and technological intelligence. Cooperation between the Hong Kong tycoons, the triads, and the Beijing leadership adds a new dimension to the well-known mass line collection strategy followed by the Chinese intelligence. This situation substantially raises the level of potential threat, revealing the effectiveness of the Chinese efforts to obtain Canadian technology and their capability to interfere in the management of the country. Central points and essential for the understanding of the problem are the cultural singularities that characterize the Chinese as the concept of debt of honor duties. So they trap people. They say, we did this for you, now you should do this for us. Okay, back to the article. By using these alliances, the Chinese government is trying to gain influence in Canadian politics by maximizing their presence over some of the country's economic levers. To that end, they proceed to initially buy and or legally set up a company in Canada that, once under their control, buys other companies and so on. An effective domino effect ensues that acts like a well-spun web or network at strategic points. It is estimated that over 200 Canadian companies have passed into Chinese influence or ownership since the early 1980s through the triads, tycoons, or China national companies. These businesses are found in various sectors of the economy, ranging from multinationals to banking, high technology, and real estate. The triads companies are also used to pursue other criminal activities such as money laundering, heroin trafficking, and as well as assistance to the Chinese intelligence. So you wonder why there seems to be two levels of law, right? One set of laws for regular Canadians, another set of laws for the people that they're importing. And it's happening in other sectors too, right? Back to the article. Being Canadian, these businesses are also eligible to receive government subsidies for research or classified contracts from federal departments. The risk is that after the research is done, their results can be transferred to China. Other forms of risk is with the access gained through classified contact. As an example, a Canadian company under Chinese influence was in contention for a contract to set up and run a classified communication system linking the main agencies of the Canadian intelligence community. A company in Toronto specializing in video surveillance was originally Canadian, but was bought by a Chinese multinational. It is impossible at present to say how many or which Canadian companies are in the same situation. These examples, however, raise questions about the integrity of some companies that have already installed security systems for various Canadian government institutions or Canadian research industries. Do you know what was done about this? This was in 1997. This report was sanitized and buried. Do you know where John Chrétien works now? Do you know where he worked 5 months later after finishing his tenure as Prime Minister of Canada? It rhymes with Mina. Okay? Do you understand what's happening? Right. They're no threat to us, right? No threat to Canada. Go back to sleep. We have your 4G. We want your 5G. It's incredible. So they go through this. The president of Huawei Canada goes through this. He says, first, it's argued that Huawei is effectively a state-owned enterprise that answers to Beijing, but that is simply not so. The reality is that Huawei is a private sector company that operates worldwide as a commercial entity in the same way that any other large telecommunications company does. Do they also steal Tappy robots and send it back to Beijing? Do they steal trade secrets and send it back to their flagship, their headquarters in Beijing? Is that also what multinational companies do? I'm not sure, but it seems like that would be bad for business. So the other two, at that point I stopped highlighting because I thought this is just incredible. But he says, second, it's argued the rollout of 5G is simply too sensitive to trust to Huawei Canada, and that the technological complexity of this new technology makes it impossible to adequately safeguard or oversee. And he just says, again, these arguments are false. And the last one, he says, finally, it is argued that Huawei Canada has an obligation under Chinese law to share information about foreign technology networks in a way that might be compromising. We would not and will not and cannot share such information. Well, cannot? Come on. It would be unlawful, unethical, and technically impossible. Well, that's also not true, sir. Definitely not true. Do you have a thumb drive and a briefcase? Because I could talk you through it. Huawei Canada operates in Canada, and we adhere to Canadian law. Moreover, we collaborated with recognized telecommunications partners and answer to them as our customers. Well, I wonder what T-Mobile's going to say. Have you picked up the phone when T-Mobile called to talk about their Tappy robot? Oh, are you going to pick up the phone when Christopher Wray calls? No? Okay. So the spin is incredible. The proof is out there if you want to look. And Huawei Canada is doing their best to keep their interests in place in Canada. So, interesting. We live in interesting times. Do you want Huawei to have anything to do with 5G? Do you want Huawei to have anything to do with 4G? The United Kingdom is removing Huawei's equipment from their 4G network. Why did I just find out today that Canada's 4G network relies on Huawei? Interesting. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You might want Maxime Bernier to lead Canada instead of these milquetoast liberals who want to please everybody but end up pleasing nobody. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.